I would broadly say the consolidation of certain industries and the privacy implications of it. And so this article last week really caught my eye, and I would tell someone really with a grain of salt because the people that wrote it, they offer their own VPN service, but it's a very detailed account that basically talks about how VPN providers that I think most people are familiar with and presume are pretty safe or do extensive amounts of marketing, ExpressVPN, private internet access, NordVPN, all these like household VPN names, and they're always talking about protect your privacy. Don't let big tech spy on you, all this kind of stuff. But then you kind of realize that these VPN companies are kind of like big tech because a lot of them are owned by the same what do you call it, holding company or conglomerate. And so what this Windscribe folks did is they basically went through and looked at a bunch of popular VPN services, and you could see how many of them are owned by the same company, which is, I guess, not the end of the world if one company offers VPNs under multiple brands, different target markets, different segmentation, whatever. But the kicker was these holding companies or the conglomerates also have marketing agencies and advertising arms inside the same portfolio. So you're telling me that your VPN data, you're not buying these things for 5, 10, 100 million, $1 billion for ExpressVPN. And you're not buying that for no reason. You're buying it to make money back, and it's going to be through that data that's collected, even though a lot of them say they do and they don't. So I don't know. This was an eye opener. I think even this page alone is a really good one that you've got on screen here, Brent, because it just shows how much is being acquired year after year by these, arguably no-name companies. And I think that happens a lot, and people don't realize because it doesn't make, the market splash because nobody really notices or cares about it, or it doesn't get, a lot of press coverage. But consolidation is just a scary thing because you're bringing all this stuff together, and you might have had trust with one vendor and now you don't anymore. I think the biggest one was, like we talked about earlier, Google bought Fitbit, and then everybody freaked out as if that was going to be what flicks the switch on, healthcare privacy all of a sudden. But what are your thoughts on kind of just even this VPN example? Because VPN has always been kind of like the gold standard for security, for privacy, for protecting yourself. And then you realize that maybe you're not even safe with VPNs, or you can't even trust these guys anymore.
And these guys went one step further and purchased the review companies, and that reviews VPN.
Yeah,
right? that is that extra kick in there. And frankly, I mean, when looking at it, the distribution is equally important as the product itself. And they obviously figured that out and decided that a lot of people purchase VPN through the review sites, and they go and buy those. This reminded me of another company, Luxottica, in a different sector. Luxottica is very similar, where they aggregated all eyewear companies in there. They now own Ray-Ban to all other brands pretty much. They are 80, 90+% of the market, something like that.
Yeah.
And and the companies that try to go independent, they muzzle their way into acquiring them. A good example is Oakley. They had to acquire Oakley, and the same continues. And on top of being the manufacturer of all eyewear across various brands, they also own the distribution. They own Sunglass to various other stores out there. And then not just that, they also own these prescription wear. And to make it worse, they also are the insurance providers for prescription lenses and whatnot.
Yeah, so full stack vertical integration.
It is, full stack vertical integration. And this is unfortunately seen industry after industry after industry. And I see this as a grand failure of the FTC. And there is a product, and then there is a distribution. Every company wants to own these, wants to own the distribution. And Google is a good example. Google is the search service. What is the distribution channel for search? It's a browser. They own browser, right? Like the Chrome. What is the distribution for Chrome? It's an operating system. Well, that's why they did Android. What's the distribution for Android? Well, it goes on hardware. That's why they get into the hardware. And what's the distribution of the cell phone service? Well, they need the service provider. That's why they started offering service. It could be Google Fiber or digital service providers. I think they have a plan there as well. And they also partner with other service providers. Like in India, they partnered with Jio, and they have, I'm sure they have similar partnerships on there. But where is that distribution of those traffic going? Well, it goes on the backbone. That's why they're investing on the backbone and whatnot. If you keep and where does that traffic land? Well, it lands on endpoint is basically in a like a triopoly of AWS, Google Cloud, and Microsoft, right? So those are these cloud services. So right from Google, the service to serving at the other end, all of these are, owning the distribution channels. And we have a series of monopolies that are horizontally and vertically integrated across the board to own all of these. So what these VPN companies have done is essentially that they realize that a large percentage of these software users purchases through review sites. So they said we'll acquire review sites, and the review sites themselves are scams, to put it bluntly.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you look at their business model, they are reaching out to the vendors and asking vendors to reach out to their customers to review on their side. So in other words, the vendors are the ones providing free content to these review sites, and they also sell promotions to these vendors so that they can generate leads. So these review sites offer lead gen to vendors. They take the money from the vendors, bid against the vendors' keywords on Google to get better ranking. So search for any standard keywords on Google. You'll probably see all the review sites pop up on the first page using the content provided by the vendor, money provided by the vendor, competing with the vendor. So these guys did something smart where they acquired these review sites and started distributing their VPN. That is what happens when there's no control of the market, and again go back to that point where it's a grand failure of the FTC on consolidation. And this consolidation applies across the board, be it education industry, finance industry, healthcare industry. It goes back to that consolidation, allowing this consolidation, lack of competition is the result of this.
Yeah, I mean, there was another story actually too in terms of consolidation. It was Imager is a super popular photo sharing, image sharing thing. Started out, I think, really closely tied to Reddit, and then kind of just often used. I used it extensively for a lot of things. It's just super easy, great API to upload things to very quickly and easily, and share things. No fuss, some ads here and there, but whatever, you dealt with it. But they got bought up by basically the same company that owns Kick, like the, I guess, kind of messaging platform that nobody uses anymore. Genius, which does like lyrics for a lot of websites. World Star Hip Hop, that has a lot of entertainment media content. And all three of these are, these are essentially free services masquerade by some level of surveillance, data tracking, things like that, right? You don't get lyrics for free and have all that information for free out there. You're being tracked in some way, shape, or form, and that information is being distributed out, probably without your knowledge if you're not familiar with it. So to now have these like millions or not even millions, definitely billions of photos from Imager be kind of part of the same conglomerate, a little suspect. You don't really know why. I don't think Imager is like printing money out here, so it's not like a viable business. But you connect all the different dots of media and free media content, and you're able to aggregate a much bigger picture. And then I was looking into the actual company that bought them. Brent, I think you had a slide for it. It was Reality or Media Lab. Sorry, Media Lab. And so Media Lab has a pretty questionable, I think, privacy policy. It's kind of hard to find. I think their website like medialab.ai or something, and you have to dig through their privacy policy, and it talks a lot about how information is shared across different properties or services that they own. So it's not like siloed in one by one. At least they say that upright, very clear. But I mean, here you've got it in bold, which I think says it the best. Presumably the goal is to bundle traffic from these properties to sell ads or data, which is all it is, right? And so you buy a bunch of these services up together. And now usually there was a middleman that is maybe a data broker or a data aggregator that put all the pieces together. But now you have but in order to have that middleman, you would have to do that like anonymized data thing we talked about earlier, and then de-anonymize it. Here, if you own all the brands, there is no anonymization or de-anonymization because you're not really sharing or selling it to external parties because you yourself are becoming the ad platform. And I think we'll see a lot more of this kind of stuff in general, especially in terms of like media consolidation, just because it might not be super profitable on your own, but you put 5, 6, 10 of these together and you get a much bigger, better picture for the people that are visiting your sites and how to target them better.
Hey, we have a question. Maybe one of you can handle it. Are there far more VPN players popping up? Are we just seeing whack a mole here? Or they keep sprouting them and then they keep acquiring them and aggregating them. Is that the game right now?
I mean, I would say there's definitely more VPN providers popping up because it's not rocket science to build a VPN. You're basically just routing data, oftentimes through OpenVPN, which is like I would say, an open source, if I'm not mistaken, VPN technology or point to point, however it works. But you're basically just feeding that traffic from one place to another through an intermediary, and this way you don't get tracked. That intermediary that's loading the content and then sending it to you, that's getting tracked. So it's not like rocket science to build one, which I think is kind of why it makes it um, worse because I mean, it's tricky because a lot of them will say that, we don't log your data or we don't store any kind of historical information. Clearly, that has to be false because otherwise, you're not buying up 8 of these services for like anywhere from 10 to $1 billion for no reason, right? Not on subscription revenue alone. There must be some other alternative way. And I could, I could probably the amount of times I've heard ExpressVPN advertisements on like podcasts or like YouTube shows is mind blowing. Like the amount of money these guys spend, it has to be just through the roof. And I don't think they're making that much money on subscriptions. I mean, probably an unsubstantiated claim, but if I dug a little bit more, I'm sure we could find how nefarious they are. So to answer the actual question, I think there are more players popping up. What can someone really do to protect themselves? That becomes a lot tougher. A lot of people will say VPN back to your home, but then your ISP is tracking you, so that's not really any better. I don't know. What do you think, Raju? Is there a good way, or is everybody just
I
kind of
mean,
out of luck?
end of the day, pick VPN providers where you have clarity on their business model. The business model plays a critical role here. Now, a lot of VPN companies out there, it is known that there are always other people who are looking to aggregate, then you'll try to create a VPN, become a little popular, show some momentum, and sell it, make a quick
Yep.
buck, and retire. Right?
Hmm.
That has been the business model for a lot of these companies. Are there and then during the process they may raise some money, and whenever you raise some money, you need an exit, and that thing keeps going, the usual thing. So which means you cannot trust them in the long run. So pick providers, and I think this article was created by someone who's by a company that is bootstrapped, that is in the business of offering a truthful VPN solution. Those are the ones I would rather trust than the
Yeah.
ones who are starting, raised a bunch of money, and that whenever you raise money, you have to exit, and once you exit, you have to you get out of it. And this, after a while, after 3 years, 4 years, after exit, you realize that there's a conflict in interest. And this morning I read that the Whole Foods CEO is exiting. Right? Well, there's a reason, and you should see that coming. So just the same way, whenever you sell a company, the values change. We have seen that with WhatsApp. Well, we have discussed that. Right? The founders left and then started a competition because their values do not align. So these things do happen. So if you're picking a VPN provider, pick someone that is trustworthy and can stick offering good service and not greedy. I think that is at least whenever I look at a service, that is one of my key criterias.
I just want to go back to this slide. Maybe this kind of tells the story. Uh, with Cape Technologies, I kind of feel bad for CyberGhost and ZenMate because back when they got acquired in 2017, 2018, it was like chump change. Look at all the acquisitions that have happened in 2019 and 2020 on both sides of this thing, particularly ExpressVPN. Maybe CyberGhost could have gotten like an extra 950 million bucks or something if they had held out. But it seems like there is a lot of momentum. Look at all the acquisition. I know this isn't an exhaustive list, but it seems like the trickle might have started in 2017 or thereabouts. Now it's a full stream, and it's like full stream ahead because there's money to be made, and you guys are.
And
It's amazing what's going on out there.
And if you look at their review site owned by Cape, guess what the number one recommended VPN solution is? That's
Not just the number one, number two, number three, number four. They're all their own services.
But that probably is also ranked based on the amount they paid to acquire. So number one, because, well, they need to get a lot more money out of it.
Yeah, number one, because it's making us more money than anything else right now. So we need you to keep on doing that.
And we spend a lot of money. We better make it back.
Yeah, I think in this Windscribe article, I think there was like a little tongue-in-cheek comment where like they put ExpressVPN as number 2 because they were like being modest and thinking that if they didn't put it up front, it might not look as shady. And I was like, well, you didn't really fool anybody. Yeah, Anand brings up a good point about the Imager thing. I think Genius has a big community as well. Worldstar Hip Hop has a big community as well. So all three of them are heavily good on community, which is honestly even better because the more engaged community, you're paying a premium for it, obviously. But that means you have people coming back, and that increases the value of every single visitor on the site. The more engaged they are, a hit and run is far less valuable than a returning customer. So yeah, you pay a premium for it, but he's right. I never thought photo sharing would have a big community, but there's a lot. Like there's a lot of comments and stuff like that. I think the deep Reddit integration helps a lot because comments can come back and forth. So yeah, it's not like I would by no means call it like a dumb acquisition, but just something you got to kind of watch for because you're picking up all these different media properties and consolidating them some way. Generally, that's not good news for the consumer, just historically speaking.